UC Talks with me, Jay Wyatt, and my colleagues Shane Howie from Australia and Scott Middlebrooks from the USA. Today we're going to look at network readiness and legacy integrations, both which I've talked about previously in my white papers, Know Before You Go, which is available from the AudioCodes website. So what should organizations do in terms of ensuring their networks are capable of supporting Microsoft Teams? And, you know, Shane, I know you've got a lot of experience with this, so why should organizations conduct a network readiness assessment prior to implementing Teams?
It all comes down to the network assessment is just so important. There are many times where you see people just put in Teams and they start using it, and when they don't do the legwork, they then don't get that user adoption, because when you do the legwork and you're getting that great voice quality and things like that, people really want to use Teams. And also from a help desk perspective, there's no I made this call and this didn't work, or it's very jittery or things like that. You get those type of questions that are, when you're changing systems, always come up. What the network assessment does, and there's some really cool tools by Microsoft, and I know we also do some sort of more paid assessments, but even just from we want to go and use the free tools from Microsoft, you can do it, and you've got to take into consideration, I always say this to the people, not only the servers or the router, the SBC, I should say, the firewalls, but also the clients. Where are those clients sitting? And that's one of the big things we need to look. And of course, being Office 365, it's a service, it's a cloud service. We've now got this change where we're now everything's going over the internet. So yeah, that network planning is such an important piece.
I'm glad you brought up the internet piece of that, Shane, because that was something that was on my mind. You know, I run into a lot of organizations who say, oh, we've got a voice over IP system today, or we're running Skype for Business on-prem today. Why do we need to do this? And as you mentioned, you know, this is a transformation, is a shift, and that unless you're specifically architecting your network for this workload, you're potentially more than likely going to be sending all of your media flows out to the cloud. So you need to make sure that your network is designed to support that, and that your upstream carriers are designed are up to task. So that's it's one of those things that just taking the network that you have, just because you have voice over IP on it, doesn't necessarily guarantee a good quality of experience, and not just for audio, but for video, for desktop sharing, for all of the workloads that Teams is capable of.
Yeah, and one thing that you were saying there was around the egress. So the egress of the internet, where we're exiting the internet. Traditionally, a lot of companies have been, I guess you'd call, centralized internet. Definitely over here in Australia, I don't know what it's like in the UK and US, but we might have centralized internet with little branch offices, and that design of a network doesn't necessarily fit in with a decentralized, highly scalable solution like Teams. Right. So sometimes, and that's where one of the reasons why those network assessments very important at the start.
Yeah, and I think Scott, you brought up something very valid there, which is quality of experience. Because in the old world, everybody talked about quality of service, okay, and making sure that your network infrastructure had QoS enabled, so that you have priority on voice traffic. We've moved into a different era now, especially when we talk about Teams, because it's a hosted solution, that we talk more about quality of experience, which is from endpoint to endpoint. And obviously being able to monitor that, is a key metric, so that you know that you've got good call quality across the board. Because there's no good saying, well, I've had a really bad call, I need you to investigate this, if you haven't got the tools in place that allow you to do that. Awesome. So, as mentioned in one of my previous video blogs, Microsoft Teams, it is a completely different way of working. However, many organizations have legacy integrations to consider, such as analog devices, third-party applications, CRM, contact center solutions. So thinking now, guys, about legacy integrations, what can organizations do to kind of integrate their legacy requirements? And Scott, I'll let you lead with this one.
Well, I think it's something that Shane mentioned in a previous conversation, where even if we're not talking about integrations from like an audio integration or a video integration, we need to think about it as an integrated system, as an integrated platform. Think about your firewalls, think about your proxies, think about your routers. As you mentioned, Jay, think about your DSCP. These are all integration points or transport points, places that traffic is going to hit. So integration to me means more than just thinking about, oh, well, where are my analog endpoints? How am I going to take my existing video estate and make it tie into Teams or my contact center? We need to think about this as a completely integrated system and how it touches and impacts all of the elements of the system that Teams relies on.
Yeah. That's a good point you bring up there about video solutions, because I know from my experience that a lot of large organizations have invested heavily in sort of conference room solutions, and so is there anything, Shane, that they can do if they've invested in let's say Polykit, this Skype for Business certified? What can they do going forward?
That's the meeting rooms is definitely the hardest. I'm currently working on a project where we went in and we're talking about the phones, and that's nice and easy. Once we start getting into that meeting room, it really is a lot more difficult.
There is a stop with Skype Business certified devices, isn't there? When is that?
Well, that's a good question. It's coming up soon. It's
July 2023, I think.
Yes, but obviously 2021 is the end of Skype for Business as we know it, then 2 years after that, all those rooms. So I mean, there are services and the likes that can do the interop and all that type of stuff. It's added costs.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Awesome. Guys, we're going to move it on there. So do you have any other advice to give our viewers around kind of legacy integration or network readiness? Any sort of passing snippets?
Don't forget things, lifts, all those analog devices. One of my favorites at the moment, if you got doing campus type situations, lots of analog devices. There's no reason to replace that analog device. You can keep that in, bring it back to the SBC. There's solutions out there. If you're transferring to Teams, your back office can often be done, and all those analog devices and that can stay as is.
Awesome.
I guess my takeaway would be, just remember that as you're moving to Teams, that this is a journey of transformation, and that with transformation and change, comes a lot of Shane, you summed it up pretty well in an earlier conversation, is planning. Cannot underestimate or undervalue the effort that goes into the planning, the upfront.
Awesome. Okay, well guys, thank you ever so much, and thank you for watching. Do look out for our next video where we will look at Microsoft calling plans and direct routing and explain the difference between them. So thank you ever so much.